Can they hear me? Can they hear me live out there? Next beat. That ain't the beat I want.
Those was wood
another
beats
beat.
right
Another
there.
beat. Nope. Give me another beat. Give me another beat. Nope. That's not it. That's the beat. Turn it up.
Oh, word.
Turn it up. I gotta hear it a little louder. Can you make it louder than my headphones? Turn me up in my headphones. I'm still stuck in the 80s/90s. Lottos, kangaroo boots, nanny ghosts, Beelers, jumpsuits and troops, Junos, color Levi's, Bugs Bunny sweaters with the rhinestone ring on it. Fighting and making up the next day. Nobody getting shot. Working or hustling to get it, or get got. We had love for the streets, our family, our foes, our friends. Respect for the elderly. Pager/payphone, sneaking into Adams Theater. Watching Crush grooving tougher than leather. Hopping gates out the college port to bank out, cause you don't want to get caught at mom's crib or at Von's crib. Eating funny dinner with the fam. Church every Sunday, 8 o'clock a.m. And even if I fell asleep in the back row or played sick, no matter what, man, I still had to go 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper. 80s, baby. He's a DJ, I'm the rapper.
Welcome, everybody, to the X-Cast, episode number 59M of the X-Cast. That letter means something, if you know. If you've listened in the past, that means tonight is a Deep Issues show. I'm your host, Josh Houselander. Joined with me, as always, our producer, Adam Hernandez, our Deep Issues expert, Mr. Eddie Zaharsky. That is the voice of Khalil Johnson you hear in the intro music. He will be on the show pretty soon. They got some really, really great stuff in the works, and they're going to debut a lot of it right here on the X-Cast. But that's not what we're talking about tonight. That will be a great show, but we're here to talk about tonight's great show, and that is the deep web / the dark web. Very interesting topic. We've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. Adam, Ed, what's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Awesome. How are you?
Awesome. It's day 4,861 in the search for Tim Shovelday, by the way.
Awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. Oh my God. I almost forgot to say that. That would have destroyed the whole show.
Ed, say hi. I want to make sure that your mic is working.
Hey, how's it going?
Say it one more time.
Hey.
I think it is.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Sounds good to mine.
One more time.
One more time?
There we go.
Or 2 more times?
Just make it 3.
Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
We're good. We are good. We are good. So we are here to talk about the deep web, the dark web, the invisible web, the hidden web, all different names for not exactly the same thing. Some of those are synonymous things. Some of them are similar, but they are not the exact same thing. We want to definitely tell you the difference between the deep web and the dark web tonight. But first, before we start, we don't normally do this. Eddie thinks I'm a sissy for doing this on air, but I do want to say before the show even starts that I do think it's important that we are not suggesting that people go out on the dark web and look around. A lot of dangerous stuff out there. Dangerous to you as a person, but also just simply dangerous to your computer as well. So anybody out there listening, I wouldn't suggest that anyone necessarily go on the dark web. You definitely shouldn't be going on the dark web unless you really know what you're doing. So with that being said, we'll continue the show. What is the deep web or the dark web? I guess we should first give what the opposite of it is, and that is the surface web. The surface web is what we know. The surface web is what you see when you flip on your computer, turn on your phone, see MSN or Google or Yahoo or whatever, any one of these search engines. The deep web is anything that one of these major search engines cannot find. It is anything out there that can't be found. Now, in preparation for this show, I was always telling people when we talk about this stuff around the, sitting around the campfire or whatever, and I would always say that I would use a percentage somewhere around about 15% of what you can find from Google, Yahoo, any of the major search engines, from those things is the surface web. The rest is all on the deep web. But now you have people saying that it's really more like about 1% of what you can find from those major search engines is the surface web, and the other 99% is. I don't have data to back that up necessarily, but even if you use the old number of about 15%, which is a very conservative estimate, that still goes to show that between 85 and 99% basically of the internet is the deep web.
I've also heard that another number I've heard thrown around, Josh, is the deep web, which also encompasses the dark web.
Right.
Is roughly 5,000 times bigger
Wow.
than the surface web.
Wow.
Or the indexed web.
Sure.
While that may seem really large, you have to consider also that what a lot of that information is. So something like, say, if you go to do banking on a site,
Sure.
the login page is technically part of the surface web, but everything behind that password is technically part of the deep web.
Correct.
So that database they have of every person's login and password and all their financials and stuff like that, you could easily see how much just on, say, a banking site, a very small percentage of their site would actually be surface and the rest would be deep.
Very true. And that's a great example, Ed. And that's kind of the big difference of people will often use deep web and dark web interchangeably. A lot of people, even, I've seen YouTube videos, I've seen blog posts, I've seen, especially while doing research for this particular show, but also just for fun in the past too. A lot of people use deep web and dark web interchangeably, and you really shouldn't.
No.
Because the dark web is that nasty side of the deep web. But the deep web, like Ed said, is just simply anything that is not indexed properly or indexed through a search engine. So even, for instance, to go
it's like, what? A rectangle's a square, or a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't a square. It's the same thing.
Exactly. You're right. The dark web is in the deep web, but the deep web isn't necessarily the dark web.
Correct.
So basically, in essence, an example I like to give, I actually think I like Ed's example better, but the example I like to give is, if you were in college and you ever wrote a paper on Word on your computer and then sent it to your professor with a link inside the email, that link is technically on the deep web. You can't access that from anywhere else. You can't access that without that specific link. So without the specific link, it cannot be gotten to any other way. So that's on the deep web, technically.
We're talking
nothing nefarious about that.
And we're also talking intraweb too.
Sure.
Or the intranet, which is usually it's like closed circuit television almost, where it's only accessible through certain parties. Like certain businesses might have an intraweb. When I used to work at the movie theater, we had an intraweb that was shared amongst all computers that were, at different AMC movie theaters.
Sure.
But North Korea has an intraweb that
Sure.
only their citizens can access, and that's what they believe is the internet. But since I mentioned North Korea, again, we're going to be talking a lot of seedier things with the dark web tonight.
Sure.
When I was looking through all of this, one of the good things that the dark web that we may get caught up with the deep web. One of the good things about the dark web or the deep web is countries like North Korea, countries like China, who also limit their citizens' web access.
Many Middle Eastern countries.
A lot of other Middle Eastern countries too. A lot of the citizens will go onto the deep web or the dark web and kind of tell the truth about what is really going on behind, obviously, closed doors, but.
No, it's where we get a lot of our information, actually, about these countries. So you ask, how does one get on the deep web? How does one get to the dark web? And there are a couple different ones, but the main one you hear about a lot is Tor.
The Tor browser.
You must download a Tor browser, and this gives you anonymity within, on the web, basically. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, does anything really give you anonymity? I don't know that anything does when you're talking internet. Tor is what that stands for, Touring Onion Router, correct?
Something like that. Yeah.
And that's because basically an onion site is, normally when you're on the web, you're going to .com, .net, .org, .gov. These are the sites you're going to. But when you are on the deep web or the dark web, a lot of these sites you're going to be finding are .onion sites.
And that's the main extension too. I mean, there's obviously other ones that are involved with deep web or dark web websites, but .onion is the most common. It's like the .com equivalent to the dark web.
And so a lot of these sites you're going to find, because they're so hidden, because they're so hard to get to, the website page isn't going to be, armsforsale.com or not armsforsale.onion. It's going to be 5G6943KLZPQR5.onion is how they hide themselves on the web, that you have to know this exact website to be able to get there, which in a lot of ways, if you think about it, for those of you, and I wasn't really one of these people, I know Ed was, Adam you might have been, although Adam is, you're a little younger too than me. I'm not sure when exactly you started being a computer whiz, if you did it at
I'm not a computer whiz.
Well, but I mean, were you on computers at a very young age, or
I was probably 95, 96, something like that.
So yeah, probably, that's kind of the infancy of the internet. But if people recall back to then, if you're young enough or if you're old enough to recall back to then, that's kind of how the internet used to be. You didn't always have these search engines you couldn't just turn on the internet and just type in episode 8 trailer and have it instantly pop up.
No,
you had to actually have a website to go to. You actually either had to know the website to type in the URL at the top of your computer, or you had to have a website where you knew had a direct link to that, to where you wanted to go. So the internet, the whole internet, back when it was much, much smaller, used to be like this, really.
Remember AOL keywords? Remember, like, if you'd see a commercial and you would, and now they'd give you an email address, or not an email address, but a web address, or they'll give you like a hashtag or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure we can remember, seeing a commercial and the bottom it would say AOL keyword,
right?
Ford,
and that was kind of the beginning of, I don't know about the beginning of the search engine, but the beginning of the way we surf the web now. The kind of, what I like to say, and I'm including me in one of these idiots, but like the idiot's way to use the internet, in essence, because I didn't know how to do that back then. I was not an internet guy. I never had a computer till, well, hey, I'm old and I did not grow up on computers. I was married the first time I had a computer with the internet. I mean, I'm not, so I'm not a young person who is like grew up like in my parents' basement on the internet.
Weren't you actively trying to avoid it at one point too, since you hadn't been on it yet?
I was, yeah, I was for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely was that. I was like I did not want to be on the internet at all, and now at this point, I've been podcasting for over 10 years, and I'm all over social media and everything else, just like everybody else. So I'm a total sellout.
Should have stuck to your guns.
Yeah, I should have, but then I wouldn't be here talking about the dark web here on the EmpireMedia.com. So I've come a long way. But so what is on the dark web? There's so much to talk about when it comes to this issue, and it's tough because I want to be able to divert to whatever you guys want to talk about in any spot. But
the big thing is that it's well known for, I think a lot of people have an inkling of, even if they don't really know what it is child porn.
Yes,
along with gambling and drugs, but the child porn's a pretty big one.
Well, and pedophilia is it is a major thing on the dark web. And what scares me so much about reading about the dark web and hearing about the dark web and researching it is that the thing that bothers me the most is that I feel like there are so many more people who are into really nefarious things like child porn, hard drugs, selling of hard drugs, really gross pornography, and very strange sexual fetishes, things like that. There seems, by the data I'm reading, the data I'm seeing, it seems like there's a whole lot more people that you're standing in line next to at Starbucks or shopping next to at the mall that are into things like this than we realize. And the one stat that really got to me, that really kind of like, it's like, wow, that's a really telling stat, is that, you know, Ed, you were saying a little bit off air and a little bit on air so far that the dark web and the deep web, it's not all terrible stuff, you know, and it's not, there's a whole bunch of things on there. And from the stats I'm seeing, only about 2% of the dark web is related in any way to pedophilia. You know, it has any link to it at all. About 2% of the dark web. But they also claim that up to 80% of the traffic has something to do with pedophilia. So you're a whole bunch of people, the reason that they're going on the dark web is for child porn, basically.
It's kind of like the surface web. Very large percentage of that is regular porn.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You know, I mean, yeah, I mean, how much of the surface web is truly porn? Probably not that much. I bet it's more than 2% though. But how much of the traffic on the internet, on the surface web, is related to porn? And you could even say the same thing about movie sites, you know, or just, you know, movie blogs, or something that is kind of useless, but not in any way nefarious, but kind of useless to our daily lives, or it's not important in any way. But how much of the internet is devoted to, you know, complaining about movies? I guess I'm doing the old Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back here thing. You know, we've decided the internet's given us all a voice, and we decided to use that voice to share porn and bitch about movies.
What the fuck is the internet?
Exactly. But the traffic outweighs the actual amount of the content in that way. But if you really want to, you know, dig deep into the dark web, yeah. Pedophilia, child porn, a lot of illegal porn, snuff films, drug sales, gun sales, the Silk Road. It's a huge thing that we should definitely talk about. Silk Road being basically is the eBay of the dark web, if you will, or the Craigslist. I don't know which one is a better comparison out of the Craigslist or eBay, but it is pretty much the Craigslist or the eBay of the dark web. And on the Silk Road's been shut down many times by the government. It always pops right back up. And basically, the Silk Road is the place where you can go to get your illegal firearms.
Well, I think most recently they shut down, or they moved the firearms portion of the Silk Road.
They did, okay.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, it was. They named it something else too. It was like, I think it was called the Armory or something, and even that is shut down right now. But there's a million different places, it seems like, where you can get weapons.
Yeah, when they tell us
on the dark web,
when they tell us it's shut down, that just means they haven't found the new one yet.
Yeah, there's tons of them. I mean, there was this. I mean, when I was, you know, before tonight, I was looking at, you know, I wasn't on the dark web. I was looking at other guys, you know, kind of reporting on and seeing and telling what they saw in the dark web. But, you know, there was just a bunch of different sites that they could go to, and, you know, to find weapons.
Would you say Silk Road is more primarily drugs?
Yeah, it seems like that's definitely what it is now. It's illegal drugs. It's pharmaceuticals. It's you know, over the counter drugs, all the way up to, you know, hard line heroin, stuff like that. That seems like what it's mostly now.
And basically, what's happened is the street dealers can't deal anymore the way they used to. That has been shut down. So this is where they've moved. The big time street dealers have moved to the internet, to the dark web, and that is where they're getting their drugs. Now, there isn't less people doing drugs. No. There isn't less people selling them, but this is where they're selling them. And something that I think is definitely worth mentioning with the guns, buying illegal guns on the dark web, that isn't that huge of a thing here in the United States. It's not that hard to get a gun here in the United States. An illegal gun for us, that's where we would maybe be getting our illegal guns. but there isn't as many guns that are illegal here in the U.S. But you wonder, people in Europe still seem to come up with guns. They still have gun violence. People in Australia, where do these people in Europe and Australia get their guns? They get them on the dark web. That is where these things are purchased. So the illegal gun, when you say, you're buying an illegal gun on the dark web, the illegality of the gun depends on where you're buying it. It's not illegal to buy a Glock in the United States, but it is illegal for some people to buy a Glock. So, that's, if you are a person with no criminal record and you are clean and no mental illness and all this stuff, then yeah, you can go to the store and with a minimal background check, go buy a Glock here in the United States. I happen to think that's a good idea. It's called the Second Amendment. I support that. But in England, a Glock is illegal. It doesn't matter who you are. In France, a Glock might not be illegal, but it's very difficult to get. So your degree of the illegal gun you're buying depends greatly on who you are and where you live. That's I think an important distinction to make. That's true with drugs to some degree too, depending on what you're getting. But in most places, heroin and cocaine and crack are illegal, and large, just mass quantities of prescription drugs are illegal. And again, it depends on who you are, what your background is, your criminal record, things like that. Here in the U.S., it seems to be a whole lot easier to get marijuana legally now. That isn't necessarily true everywhere, though. Cocaine, it depends. I think it's it's an important distinction that it depends on where you're at and who you are as to why this is illegal. But there's a market for it, a huge, huge, huge market for it.
According to Popular Science, the 6 seems like highlighted things that you can buy off of the dark web is 1, guns or drugs. The next one is counterfeit currency. 3 is forged papers. 4, firearms, ammunition, and explosives. 5, hitmen. And 6, human organs.
That's pretty creepy.
And it says, as far as human organs go, in the darker corners of the dark web, a vibrant and gruesome black market for live organs thrives. Kidneys may fetch $200,000, hearts $120,000, livers $150,000, and a pair of eyeballs $1,500.
So I'd like to point something out, because some people might be listening and saying, wow, this is some awful stuff. Why don't we just try to shut all this down? But it's actually just kind of a reflection of reality. Every single thing that has been mentioned here is something that existed prior to the internet.
Right.
People have done drugs. People have gambled. People have committed child pornography.
People have hired other people to kill somebody else.
Yep. It's just basically moved to a new forum, just like a reflection of reality. You have maybe this big portion of the internet that is law-abiding, and then you have this other section that isn't necessarily
it's almost a perfect reflection of society. I mean, you would hope the ratios wouldn't be as
you guys are absolutely right. Just like when you're talking the surface web, we've loved movies in the Western world since they came out. We've looked forward to movie trailers for decades and decades. But now, when the new episode 8 Star Wars trailer came out yesterday, debuted on Monday Night Football, it used to be what would you have done? You'd have, if you were going to bed early, you'd have made sure you taped Monday Night Football on your VHS recorder so you could watch the trailer the next day. You'd have made sure that you watched more TV so you'd have caught the trailer somewhere. You'd have gone to the movies to catch the trailer before a different movie. No, now you Google it. Yeah. Now it's just instant. You just Google it and you check it out. We complained about movies. We bitched about movies and bitched about music and talked about what we liked and what we didn't like long before. But now we just do it on the internet. It's just easier. It's more efficient. It's better. And
just like in reality, when those things become illegal, they move to the dark side. Drugs are illegal. They end up happening in some back alley.
Right.
Drugs are illegal. They get sold on the dark net. So.
Yeah. No, you guys are absolutely right. And I mean, just hey, we've been listening to radio in this country since before we even had moving pictures. Been listening to radio for a long time. And some people do still listen to, I'm one of them, do still listen to terrestrial radio in a lot of ways. But a lot of people find it much easier to download a podcast like you may have done right now while you're listening to this, you know. There were radio shows that would have talked about deep issues before, but you couldn't just go Google it and then save it for later and listen to it while you're, you know, in your morning commute or sitting on the toilet or wherever else you may want to listen to a podcast. I don't know. But no, that is important. That's a good distinction, you guys, that the internet didn't create any of these things. These have been around for a very, very, very long time. Conspiracy theories, you know, again, have been around for a long time, but now both the surface web and the dark web are filled with conspiracy theories or leaked government information that a lot of it may be total BS. A lot of it may be very legitimate. Do you guys want to talk about, and maybe you guys know a little more about this than I do. I hope so. I feel bad because I'm the one bringing it up. But are you guys familiar with 4chan at all?
A little bit.
Okay, because that's technically not on the deep web, right?
No.
You can
Nope,
get
4chan,
to 4chan, but
you can Google 4chan and get to the website.
right. I feel that 4chan is almost kind of like, in some ways, the link between the dark web and the surface web.
It's kind of like the embassy for the.
Right, you're gonna have a lot of stuff that pops up on there from the dark web, but it is policed and it is shut down, then it's removed and it's taken off. But this is a kind of surface website, and there are different sites like that where you can kind of go somewhat safely go to these sites and get some of this stuff. But and you go there without a Tor browser. And I guess technically you can go to the deep web or the dark web without a Tor browser too, but you would be a fool to do so.
No, you don't. You definitely don't want to do that. A couple of other things you don't want to do also, if you do decide to venture into the deep web and then eventually the dark web. And again, I'm assuming and I'm hoping that you're going to research doing this before you actually go and do it. By which case, what I'm going to say now, you should already know before you go and do it, is you don't use any of your own personal stuff on there.
No.
You don't use your own personal credit cards. You don't mention anything about where you live. You don't mention anything about... You don't even... If you have to come up with a login name for something, you don't even use a login name that you've used somewhere else before.
My suggestion:
don't even use something that you're interested in.
Use Adam Hernandez 69 as a good name.
That's what I would use.
No, you don't use anything that can be traced back to you. I mean, it's just, and again, I'm just saying it for those people that are going on there just because they want to see, just what the dark web is all about. Not that they're going to go on there and purchase weapons or drugs or anything like that. Just somebody who's curious, be like, hey, let's go ahead and browse the dark web, see what's on there. You do it because, you don't want a hacker to get a hold of you and basically fuck up your life, steal your identity and do whatever. And that's some of the shit that can happen with this. I mean, just go and Google on, just horror stories from the dark web and what has happened to some people out there because they weren't protecting themselves when it came to their Tor browsing, or
maybe they were even protecting them or thought they were protecting themselves and they've still gotten it.
What I even heard, Judge, is even if you do go on this, don't even minimize your Tor browser. Don't do any of that. If you're on the dark web, keep your Tor browser completely maximized. Don't minimize it, because you never know if there is a lapse in your own security and a hacker is able to screenshot your computer screen. Mm-hmm. There could be stuff on your screen there that could compromise more of your own shit. So,
Again,
Put some electrical tape over that. What's it called? Your
your
camera. too.
camera. I know people that do that without going on the dark
Yeah,
web. So
Yep.
I figured you'd probably do it.
Mark
And
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, no, I mean
and I don't think one is on Ed's, which is kind of shocking to me.
Because joke's on them if they want to see me.
But yeah, that's
yeah, I don't think nude pictures of me walking through my apartment would sell for much on the on the dark web or surface web or hidden web or invisible web.
well.
I don't
They're
think
probably thinking to
anyone's
themselves, they're
interested.
like, "Shit! If this is what I can get off of the regular web, I sure as hell don't want to go
Right.
on the dark web."
But 4chan, real quick. I know that is technically off topic, but 4chan is kind of this place. This is where a lot of our memes. This is where the idea of the meme originated. This is where the idea of Rickrolling came from. The what else was it? Came from them? Chocolate Rain. a lot of the kind of goofier stuff that we know about now from the internet. It came from 4chan, and that 4chan is based on the old BBS sites, the billboard system idea. Which, Ed, I know that you were big into that. Tell us what that means when I say a billboard site or a BBS. What did that mean back in the day?
So bulletin board system. Basically, there was a large variety of software. You essentially you would get somebody would set up their computer at their home, and this is way before high speed internet. So they'd have a dial up modems. They'd set up a phone line, and they'd set the software up so you could essentially dial into it. And it was they generally were text-based, although a little bit later they got to be a little graphical-based. They were anti-graphics, so just think of like characters, not actual like images. And you would have file systems, message boards, games, things like that. But it was generally fairly locally based. Like unless you were into having a bigger phone bill and dialing other area codes, you would dial into essentially one of your neighbor's computers and participate in this sort of like, in a way, think of like the internet, but very localized. And there would be some connection to other BBSs. There were a lot of other bigger networks out there where essentially they would belong to a bigger network, and usually that was some form of message board like FidoNet or something like that, where you would essentially be connected to a bigger message board network. You could post on there, or eventually the message would get to somebody else. They could get it, but it's not exactly that way, but it's almost like a miniature text version of the internet in a way.
Okay.
I think technically that would be BBSs at this point would be considered deep web because they are technically a network of sorts that cannot be indexed.
And they would you have to be basically live and turned on to be able to access it. Right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah, like if my phone line were busy or I turned my computer off, you couldn't call into my BBS.
Okay. And this was basically more set up for downloading purposes, right? Like not so much in real time, or was it?
It varied. Connection speeds were horrible, but you could download all sorts of things. Like I used to go on there, and it was a way that I would download games. There were, like I said, the message boards. There actually were a lot of text-based games called Doors that people would participate in. They generally tended to be turn-based because most BBSs only had what was called one node. Essentially, the person only had one phone line. Sometimes they'd have two or three, but it was essentially because you use the phone line. Like if I had one set up and you dialed into me, while you were on there, Adam couldn't get in. You'd have to wait until it freed up. He'd call in. You might get a busy signal.
Was this a text adventure?
These were generally text adventure. They would have ANSI graphics, which is just think of like graphics you could make with characters and other small symbols and things.
Like a choose your own adventure book online.
Kinda, yeah.
but semi multiplayer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to. Ed, you may be able to answer it. Adam, you might be able to too. But I'm going to just read a very brief sentence fragment that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I have a feeling that you guys will be able to explain it better. And it maybe would make a lot more sense to people, because people listening to this show maybe probably are better on the internet than I am. But okay, I had heard the deep web described as things hidden behind HTML. Can you describe what that maybe kind of
Wait, say that
means?
one more time.
That it is things on the internet hidden behind HTML.
That's what the dark web is? Is that what they're saying?
The deep web.
The
yeah.
deep web.
Yeah.
Well, HTML is just it's hypertext markup language. It's essentially one of the things that is used to display the web pages.
Yeah. Even the deep web, you're using HTML to create the web page that you're on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean that's.
But you have to get there directly through an HTML instead of.
Well, that's just the
Instead of
code
through
that
index?
your browser
Yeah.
displays. So what happens is
Like
so,
Flash is a separate code too. I mean,
Okay.
you can.
Yeah, so you go to google.com and your browser basically sends a request for the page and it gets sent back, and what gets displayed is essentially HTML code plus some other stuff that your browser then renders and displays on the screen.
Exactly.
Okay. That helps a little bit, because
I
I'll
mean,
be honest with you, when I read that, I'm like, I don't really even know what that means.
I mean, you've heard of Flash before. Flash is another code that your browser will send something to, and it'll send back. And Flash is that animated shit that is kind of being phased out right now.
Okay.
You've probably heard of JavaScript as well.
Mhm.
JavaScript is another one too. That
JavaScript is like Flash.
It's another code.
It's kind of a programming language that will perform things that you can't with just most web pages are created from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, along
Okay.
with a million other things.
And
at this point,
HTML
but-
is kind of like the most basic of these.
yes.
Okay,
And then there's PHP as well, and
I've only known that because I've had some really kind of crappy old computers. Again, despite like doing all this like podcasting stuff for all these years, I'm really not a computer guy. I've been very blessed to have really great producers like like Adam Hernandez here, and like Mike Soroka on my previous shows that are really good with this stuff and have really good tech. But I've always had like crappy little laptops and not great internet connections. So a lot of times, like even just doing like my Gmail or something, I have to click the thing that says use basic HTML. So like it'll function, because I just got old beat up computers, So I always thought of that as like a more basic thing, right or wrong, because I'm always clicking the buttons that say use basic HTML.
Yeah,
so
HTML is basically a basic building block of every web page, just about.
Okay. What does that stand for again? I'd never heard anyone.
Hypertext markup language.
Okay, hypertext markup language. Very cool. Good to know. I learned something new. There's probably a lot of people thinking like, you didn't know that, you idiot. But that makes sense. All right, we've kind of touched on some of the basics of the dark web, but let's maybe dig a little bit deeper into some of the things you can really see, on the dark web. And one thing I kind of want to start with this isn't.
Well,
Go ahead.
one other thing, Josh,
Yeah, no, jump in, please.
before we continue, kind of, is that
intro
to the deep web is
there isn't. I mean, you can't just sit there and from what I've read, you can't go and get on the Tor browser and just type in something that you want to find. Like, for instance, if we open up Google Chrome, go into the web bar and type in, Detroit Tigers,
Mhm.
and we'll find a bunch of different websites that come up about the Detroit Tigers. You can't do that on the dark web. You have to know exactly what you want and where to go in order to find it. So they
Very
do
true.
they do have a map. It's called Hidden Wiki, which you can go to, and it lists off a bunch of different things that you can,
Links, basically, a big list of links.
Yeah, it's basically it's almost like a sitemap almost for the deep and the dark web. But yeah, that's a place that you can go to, and they will have a bunch of different things on there that again, I mean, some of it is innocent as it can be for the deep and the dark web, and some of it is some of the worst stuff that you can ever think of. Again, I'm not advocating that anybody goes on the dark web to do any of this, but again, that's one of the
No, the Hidden Wiki. You're right. That is
one of the things that is on there that almost works as a roadmap in some certain sense to navigating the deep and the dark web.
No, you're right, Adam, and that's something we kind of touched on a little bit earlier. That you can't just there is no browser here. There's no search engine. You really do have to know the exact. It's like the internet of old. You have to know the exact website to go to, or at least a website to find a link.
And that's why it's so important that you know what you're doing before you go in and try to surf the deep and the dark web. Because if you click on the wrong button, or you do the if you mess up in the slightest, then you can be jeopardizing a whole hell of a lot. More than just your computer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can be jeopardizing your privacy, and you can be jeopardizing, in some sense, again, depending on what country you're living in, your freedom.
Yeah, no, your own safety.
Because if exactly too, and your own safety as well. I mean, you never know if what can be downloaded in your computer, who can be tipped off, if the government can come after you because of that. It's very, very scary, and in my opinion, not worth it. So
no, and you have to be. I mean, I hope that people listening aren't planning on doing this, but you have to be wary of the government if you're doing something illegal. But even if you're just there for fun, trying to look around, you have to be wary of the people who could take advantage of you.
Yeah.
You might think you're good with computers, but I promise you, there are people sitting in basements all over the world.
There's people who are always better than you at something.
Right, that can do anything. I mean, they can really just do anything. And your system, your livelihood, your person, your family could be jeopardized by going in the wrong place, by revealing the wrong thing. One thing we glazed over that we really should have mentioned earlier is when you're talking about, we're talking about guns for sale, we're talking about drugs for sale, we're talking about all this other stuff for sale, basically on the dark web, on the deep web. How do you buy it? No, you can only use your credit card. You can't use PayPal. You can't use.
I guess you could if you wanted.
I don't think they'd even accept it.
I don't. You're right, because there's too much to trace on their end too.
Right. So you're using Bitcoin.
Yep.
Bitcoin is the currency of the deeper parts of the internet. I don't even want to say just the deep web, because that's true on the surface web as well. But Bitcoin is basically a digital currency that's pretty much untraceable, and untraceable in a lot of ways anyway. But you have to buy Bitcoin first, and Bitcoin's expensive. It didn't used to be, but the going rate I saw, it's changing. It's kind of like the stock market, buying a stock, buying gold, buying silver, anything like that. But last I heard of the good average they threw at me was one Bitcoin costs about $239 American. U.S. currency, about $239 for one Bitcoin. So, a lot of this stuff costs many Bitcoins. Bitcoins in the thousands, and Bitcoins in the hundreds or in the thousands. So it's not, this stuff is expensive. This stuff costs a lot.
I heard Bitcoin too you can divide it a multitude of times.
Yeah.
For instance, I mean, in the United States, with the United States currency, the lowest form of currency that we have is the penny. You can take the lowest form of Bitcoin out there and basically divide it by whatever. And
0.37 of a Bitcoin.
Exactly. But yeah, that's
right.
one of the peer-to-peer currencies that is accepted largely, it seems like, on the dark web and the deep web. And even there's even some places on the surface web that
there's actually brick and mortar places
that takes Bitcoin too. But
yeah, there actually are brick and mortar places here in the U.S. and elsewhere that will accept Bitcoin.
Don't let the association scare you. Bitcoin is in no way a evil thing to have.
No, Bitcoin's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's a non-government controlled currency.
Yeah, it's if it weren't for governments and banks and other people who many of us out there believe are kind of trying to hold you under their thumb or under their boot, Bitcoin's a great idea, actually, and it probably would be. It'd probably be more prevalent if there weren't things out there like big banks trying to make sure this doesn't happen for their own purposes, monetary purposes.
If I understand it correctly, too, I mean, Bitcoin's almost like a stock as well.
Sure, yeah.
There's not, and there's, I mean, even though it is an internet or digital based currency, there is limitations to how many Bitcoins are actually out there available for use.
That's correct.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, there's not an infinite amount of Bitcoins. There's only I have got this chart up here right now.
No, a lot of people view Bitcoin as almost like a PayPal or a preloaded credit card or something, and it's not.
No, according to this chart,
it is finite despite its completely digital makeup.
Yeah, according to this chart right here, as early as this year,
It looks like there's 16 million Bitcoins in circulation around the world.
Okay.
But again, 16 million isn't. I mean, it's not. That's not $16 million. That's just how many single Bitcoins.
Well, a very rough, and a very rough estimate would be to times 16 million by $239.
Oh, it's like 4,000 something right now.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
$4,000 for one Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's been going up a lot.
So yeah, and so like these guys were saying, so if my numbers are off,
47, 16.
Oh, okay. 47. Okay, wow, all right.
I want to say it was at like 1,000 to begin the year.
Okay, so I was wrong with that 239 number.
It's been a while since.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right. No, that's fine. Like I said, maybe I was a little out of date, perhaps with that information. So, my bad.
There are other cryptocurrencies. Maybe it was one of the other ones.
Right on.
But...
No, and hey, if I'm wrong about that, I'm wrong about that. No big deal. Glad you corrected me. But no, like you guys said, much like the stock market, much like gold or silver or a different precious metal, copper, whatever you want, a lot of people simply trade in Bitcoin. I mean, it is a trading currency, for all intents and purposes, basically. But speaking of PayPal, one of the big things on the dark web, and you don't even have to go that deep into the dark web because this is really big on the hidden wiki sites, actually, is buying hacked PayPal accounts. This is a huge thing where basically what people do in essence is they hack a PayPal account, get the opportunity to steal the money from said PayPal account, but then they don't go far enough to do the deed themselves, in essence. They don't expose themselves to be the one that truly stole the PayPal account. So you can go on there and basically buy stolen PayPal accounts. And the going rate for this on Hidden Wiki is about 10% of it. So you can go on there and, basically there'll be, here's a PayPal account. It's got $700 on it. $70. And go buy yourself a PayPal account. Steal yourself a PayPal account for about $70. And then it gets more. Then you got, okay, here's one from England. It's got 15,000 pounds on it. We'll sell it to you for 1,500 pounds. Basically is their game. And I guess you take a big risk when you do this. You are stealing. You are doing something very illegal. And you're doing it. So now, you potentially could have the CIA or Interpol or whoever else now up your ass. But you also just made one hell of a killing, I mean, you're trading $10 for 100, basically. You're trading $100 for 1,000. Trading 1,000 for 10,000. I mean, it's basically that's kind of the going rate. So that pretty much depends on the seller, though, how much they want to sell it for. If they think they can sell it for a little more, they do it, or a little less. They do it. But I guess this is a huge thing on the dark web and on the Hidden Wiki, as Adam mentioned, that people are doing this. And if your PayPal account has gotten hacked, or your prepaid credit card has gotten hacked. This happened to me. I used to use those prepaid credit cards all the time, and You know, at one point I noticed that my prepaid credit card got loaded with a bunch of money.
Thank you.
I was like,
spend it immediately.
and I was like, that's got to be an error because I called to make sure that I had enough to cover the purchase I was making. It was just like $50, and I was like pretty certain that it was, and there's hundreds on there. I was like, no, there's not that much on there. I just made my regular purchase that I know I had the cash on there to make, and then a little bit after that, it was just shut down. So I was just like, whatever. Something happened. Somebody hacked it.
Should have used it.
Yeah, I should have. But you know what? I'm getting trouble to use $500 or $600. No, I don't want to do that. It wasn't my money. But no, I wasn't going to do that. But that I'm just thinking, all right, who's running what scam on this right now that this is happening? But so somebody probably bought it and just preloaded it with something, or and used it up, or something, or maybe it was just nothing more than just a dumb error on the part of the prepaid credit card. But pretty strange though, I thought, but nothing came of it. It all happened pretty quick. One thing that I thought was extremely creepy that I heard is that some people would go on the dark web, and this is again people who think they're being anonymous, think they're using Tor, and there's been several reports of people that they go on the dark web, and every time they go on the dark web, their phone rings the entire time they're on. Their phone just keeps ringing over and over again, and some people are actually bold enough to answer it, and usually there's nothing there, nobody there. And then there's been other reports of people who, like, there's one guy who claimed that he's on the dark web, and every time he was on the dark web, his phone would ring the entire time he was on it. And he answered it a couple times, and there was usually nothing. And then one time he answered it, and it was just laughter, just somebody just laughing hysterically on the other end. And he said he stopped using the dark web after that, or stopped surfing the dark web after that. But I don't know, it's crazy stuff, and. Another thing that I feel like I say this a lot on Deep Issues shows. I definitely said it when we covered aliens. I definitely said it when we covered Illuminati and things like that, but and secret societies. But a good portion of the horror stories we're going to tell you, and I hope what I'm saying is true here, by the way. I think it's true, and I really, truly pray to God that it's true, but a lot of the really nasty stuff we're gonna report on, a good percentage of it, hopefully a really good percentage, hopefully a huge percentage, hopefully 99% of it is fake.
I think a lot of it is.
Okay, it better be. I mean, it better be. But a lot of the stuff you're gonna see is totally fake. It's made up, it's contrived. It's not really there. It's not really happening the way they're showing it to you. But if 1% of this stuff is true, if this is actually happening, then, oh my God. Just because some of this stuff is just really nasty. But we've taken some time here, kind of laid the groundwork here. Do want to kind of get into some of the nefarious stuff, unless there's something else you guys want to chime in right now, and you can always chime in later too. Anything else you guys want to say before I start talking about some of the nastier stuff that
I don't have anything else.
Okay,
like red rooms.
Yes, we will get to red rooms. That's not what I was going to start with, but yes, we will definitely get to red rooms. Have you guys heard anything about?
That's just a room for people whose favorite color is red, right?
Yeah, it's Taylor Swift fans.
Oh, okay. That doesn't sound so bad.
Taylor Swift.
Except for Taylor Swift.
Her favorite color is red?
That's a Taylor Swift album, is red. Sorry, I'm the only one here who has a teenage girl, aren't I?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Taylor Swift, one of her albums is red.
Oh.
Red. Yeah, no Taylor Swift fans out there?
Just shake it off.
Crickets. we needed a crickets drop for you to play right there. Have you guys heard anything about the dark web scavenger hunts?
Explain.
Okay, it's there's quite a few out there. They're the dark web where they send you on real life scavenger hunts, where you then have to go to certain places and then access the dark web to find the next place you're supposed to go. And there's one story of a guy who kept following the scavenger hunt and kind of finding weirder stuff within his own area of living. And he eventually only went to one place, and it was pretty weird, kind of creepy. But then he went to one. When he got there, they directed him into this alley, and in the alley was the entire alley was filled with dead cats with their heads torn off.
Yeah.
Just, the way he described it is torn off heads. Not cut off, torn off heads. He decided at that point he was out, went home, and immediately when he went home, he flipped on his computer. There was an email on there, and the email just said, "Well, you tried."
Yeah.
But he did not go to the next place that they were directing him to, as each place got
Just
what
sicker
he
and
described
sicker.
as stranger and stranger, and he had no desire to see what was going to be in the next place. So
What did he do with his computer?
he claims that he got rid of that computer and he never returned to the dark web. But again, is the story made up? Perhaps. I have no idea, but pretty nasty.
Something like that I kind of fail to believe is being true, just because if you have it in a public place like an alley, a bunch of cats with their heads cut off.
There's strange stuff in alleys, though. Man.
I know, I understand that, but if you have like an alley full of decapitated cats, then I'm assuming that's going to attract somebody.
You ever walk through alleys
They
in
could have cleaned it
downtown?
up after.
Yeah.
I understand.
You ever gone through alleys in some of the not so great neighborhoods here in Detroit where we live?
Of course,
They
but
look like they haven't been seen by anyone.
I don't know.
Years.
I have a bit of a problem kind of believing the more public ones that take place in public areas more so than perhaps some of the other ones. But go ahead.
Yeah, it sounds like they were sending them to pretty not so public places, but it could be fake. I hope it's fake.
I hope it is too.
Another thing, not so fake on this one that we're very certain of, the KKK has a huge deep web and dark web presence, and on some of these hidden Ku Klux Klan sites.
Surprised they know how to turn on a computer.
Many evil people are also very smart, unfortunately, and that's something we'll definitely go off here. But the KKK, they say, has a very huge presence there, and there's a lot of sites talking about how they wish to return to their Civil War era glory. And on some of these sites, they are recruiting sites, basically, in essence. They are trying to recruit people to their cause and to the KKK, and many of these places have links to videos of terrible racist beatings and killings. They're just videos of some of the terrible things that they have done, and I think they do this to show that these weren't just something that happened a long time ago. These are recent. These are definitely recent type thing. So, but I know KKK has a very huge presence
I'm not
on the
going
dark web.
to deny that exists, but if those videos were actually out there, CNN would have that like front and center.
Maybe. I don't know. And I don't know how hard this stuff is to get to. I don't know. Is that the case?
It's not like the government isn't aware of a lot of these things that go on, and even if they're not able to exactly detect who posted some of this stuff, you could still access that video and still clearly maybe identify some of the people in the beating or whatever it is that's going on.
Perhaps it's a good point.
Or
I don't really trust the media though, or my government. So.
But that's what I'm saying, is that the media would use that as basically a look at what's happening at the dark web. You shouldn't be on the dark web because only evil people are there.
I don't know. Are we sure that CNN and government officials and other media sites aren't maybe just as scared of the dark web as Adam and I?
Oh, of course, because, well, I'll save it for later. But
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, it could be. I'm just kind of reporting on some of the things that they have said, and again, most of the stuff I'm reporting on, I hope it's fake. I do. I hope this stuff is absolute garbage. I hope it's completely fake. Another group of people that is big on the deep web are cannibals. Cannibals are, we have known that cannibals have existed all throughout history, much like pedophiles, much like some other terrible things that for some reason people feel the need to do or enjoy. But cannibals, this is bigger in many other parts of the world, but according to research, this is big in parts of the United States and parts of the Western world as well. And Adam, you mentioned trading of body parts. There is a definite site on there for what to do with how to cook live women and how to prepare them. And when the government did get involved in this site, and they said, well, there isn't necessarily rock solid proof that this is happening, but they did say that there is, whoever's made this site certainly did their research. They definitely, it definitely lined up with what serial killers had done in the past, what, serial killers who were caught had done. So whoever did this, at the very least, very much did their research when giving the tutorial on how to cook people alive and, how exactly to prepare people that you're about to eat. I mean, could this be just a nasty joke? Yeah, it could be. It definitely could be just nothing more than a joke site with somebody with a really sick sense of humor, but they definitely did their research. They did. The other thing that some of these sites have been trying to do is they try to recruit other cannibals, but they also try to recruit people to be eaten. Because some people actually have gone on and want to be eaten.
People are like that. I mean, there's other stuff that happens to him. You don't have to go on the. I don't think you have to go on the dark web to find this, but I mean, kind of in that same certain mentality. I mean, you've heard about people who are infected with the HIV virus who go to those infection parties and try to infect other people, or there's other people there that try to get infected by people who are already infected with HIV. I think they.
What is that about? Do they kind of go to like swinger type parties or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yikes. Ugh.
I'm assuming that it's kind of that same mentality. Just that sick mentality that you want something to happen to you that is just I don't even know if taboo is the right word to use to describe it. I mean, just because it is.
I think it is, but I don't know if it does it justice.
That's what I mean. I think it's even more heinous than that. So, anyways,
something that's been discussed again long before the internet. They made a movie about it, a Nicolas Cage movie about it that I loathe.
Face Off?
No, I do loathe Face Off because it's so stupid. But the reason I loathe this movie is because it was so disturbing to me. It was 8mm. You guys ever see that movie?
I've never seen that one.
Oh God, it's terrible. I mean, it's not. I don't want to say it's a terrible movie necessarily. I hated it because it just gave me just the most awful feelings. But snuff films is something that is. This is huge on the dark web. Now, many authorities still do claim that these do not exist, really. That these are fake.
I think they probably do, but the majority of them are fake.
Probably a majority of them are fake. I hope the majority of them are fake. Where it's not fake is we do have many films of people being killed, whether they were recorded for the purpose of them being snuff films.
You can find some of that on YouTube.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, what was the old VHS tapes you used to be able to
Faces of
Death. Yeah, I mean, geez, terrible stuff on there. But one of the popular snuff films that was supposedly going on the dark web was one of a baby being ripped apart by horses. Just the old-fashioned, they used to call this quartering. Or I'm sorry, drawn, to be drawn and quartered in medieval times was basically you'd take 4 horses, you would tie each limb to the back of a horse, and then you would lure the horses away as much as you could with food or whatever until the person was ripped apart. And somewhat recently, in the last few years, there was one of supposedly this being done to a baby on all over the dark web that people are just viewing like crazy. There is one for sure, and this is legit. Again, this wasn't done necessarily it wasn't done for the purpose of being put out there, but there is a big website that is just full of stillborn baby photos being played. They play like horror movie music over it, and it's just endless loop of stillborn babies.
You could probably find that on the surface web too.
Probably. There are items made of human flesh for sale.
So gross.
There is a segment called VM, which is basically a site dedicated to all things violence. Just anything, torture, death, rape.
So that's just like regular TV?
Yeah, perhaps, but more real, supposedly. Again, I can't say it enough times. I hope all this stuff is fake. I do. I hope every single thing. But if 1 out of 100 is real, then just God have mercy on our souls. I mean, really, what is humanity even about? We mentioned child porn. Dark web is the absolute top place on planet Earth for child porn. There is just at this point, if you are successful in obtaining child pornography, you have probably some sort of link to the dark web. There are other sites that it's just not just child porn, but child abuse, child murders. There are things that we have the you can go to your average to your porn shop to what's a porn shop? I was gonna say Gags and Gifts, because they even had like stuff like this, but I don't even know if Gags and Gifts exists anymore.
Spencer's now or something?
Spencer's is one, yeah, for sure. But you have your legal porn shops, and they have like blow-up dolls, basically. Well, I guess a big thing on the internet is they
Priscilla's, or was that what the...
Priscilla's, yeah, that's one. I don't know if that's... Some of these, I don't know if they're local here in Detroit or if they're worldwide or not. I don't really...
Isn't it Cirilla's or something? Like they went out of business and they rearranged the sign?
No, you're right, Ed. Here in Detroit, there was one called Priscilla's that was around for years, and I don't know if they went out of business or went bankrupt or something, but they moved the letters around, and now it's Cirilla's. That's here in the Detroit area, and you see quite a few of those actually around.
Down Telegraph.
Yep, down Telegraph, down 8 Mile. But I guess a big seller on the dark web is sex dolls shaped like infants.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. I mean, these aren't infants for sale. These are, that's just a sex doll, but just that for whoever that would turn on, I don't have words to describe the person who that would turn on, who needs one of those for their, to get off in the evening. Again, who knows if people are using them, but there are many tutorials out there on how to kidnap children, how to what's the best places to go, the best way to kidnap children, the best way to keep them.
If you're into that thing, do you even really need a tutorial?
You might, though. You might, because you want to do it, but you're not quite sure. This is like a support group almost. And that's the thing. That's where I feel that the dark web is dangerous, is because it's not that people started doing this because of the internet. They didn't. People have been doing this forever. But now, in some ways, you have a support group.
The only reason any of this even exists is because it was recorded with a camera. I mean, this happened not on the internet. Somebody happened to get footage of it and then put it on it.
No, you're right. You're right, Ed. But the thing is, if you were a pedophile and you wanted to talk to someone about what the best way to be a pedophile and get away with it is, or how to, kidnap children and get away with it, you would have really had to, search out an individual who is like-minded, expose yourself to said individual to talk about this. But now they have a place to go to, hey, what should I do? I live in the Houston area. What's the best way to get kids here? So that's where the dark web kind of will make it worse. Where they will make it so more people have access to these ideas where they can be successful with it. Because, if we know anything about pedophiles, we know that they will just do it no matter what. They cannot control themselves, and they will do this. But the idea that there's something out there that makes it easier for them to get away with it and not get caught is scary. It's definitely scary. There's a site called DEMB, Dark and Extreme Boy Stories. This is Dark and Extreme Boy Stories. I was thinking that was an acronym, but that's how they describe it. I don't know what the MB stands for necessarily. Yeah, well, that's what they said. It was DEMB, Dark and Extreme Boy Stories. But basically, this is they claim the stories are all fake. It's just their way of writing or their way of being turned on, which is disgusting, but that these are stories. But many people theorize that some of them are confessions to what they've actually done. I don't know. We mentioned weapons for sale. Again, that's huge in Europe. This dark web illegal weapons trade in Europe is just huge. And when it comes to that, I would make the argument that if weapons aren't so illegal, then
less laws will be less dark web.
Right, then you don't have to go. And when Ed and I say that, I think I can speak for him.
No pedophilia.
Yeah, I mean we're not saying that. Make pedophilia illegal, and you won't have to have the dark web. No, we're not saying that by any means. But when it comes to things like guns, I don't know. Maybe people just want to defend their home. I don't know.
Legalize it.
Yeah, I don't really know, but that's either way. This market is just, and it's huge in Europe. The
thing is I'm assuming that these guns you can probably buy from these dark web sites are probably totally untraceable too.
Right.
I'm sure there's no serial numbers.
And that's
or
a reason
like
to
that.
do it in the United States or in places where you maybe could get that particular gun, but now it's untraceable.
Another reason to legalize it, because the way it is legally, you can trace that a little better.
I'm sure Josh would have a problem with that, right?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm a big Second Amendment guy. That's not necessarily, what tonight's topic, but yeah, I mean, I do. To me, I mean, I've said this before. I said this last week when Adam and I were discussing gun control, on a not so deep issues cast. Although we were pretty deep last week, weren't we, Adam? I mean, we were pretty serious anyway last week. But no, I mean, to me, people have the right to bear arms, and when the government comes in and says, no, you have to fill out this, you have to do this, you have to tell us exactly what you have in your house, you no longer have the right to bear arms, you now have the privilege to bear arms.
Yep.
That in essence is what happened. You don't have the right, you have this other stuff we're talking about on the dark web is not things you have a right to. You do not have the right to hire a hitman. You do not have the right to harm other people. But I do feel that people should have the right to bear arms and the right to own guns, to have weapons, have firearms, for their own protection, or for no reason whatsoever other than they want them. As long as they don't harm anyone with them. The minute you harm someone with them, you've done something wrong. You've done something illegal and you've done something immoral. But that's kind of what freedom's all about. But we mentioned that a lot. A lot of this depends on the personal liberty and the personal freedom that one has in whatever country they may be living in. So then things become legal. In some countries like North Korea or Middle Eastern countries, speech is not a right. So, free speech is not a right. So you must go on the dark web to exercise your right to speak out.
And so, just sort of a prediction of mine, but if you see kind of a theme here, it's things aren't necessarily that are on the dark web illegal, but they have a strong tendency to be. And we've even discussed about how things like, have been pushed to the dark web, like free speech in other countries. I think moving forward, you're going to actually see a lot more sites that would be considered now, today, legitimate, potentially setting up in the deep or the dark web, if for no other reason that essentially they've been pushed there because of maybe they're labeled as hate speech or something like that. And essentially people have to set up shop essentially to hide.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's true. And that's kind of the dark underside of all of this. Aside from pedophilia, aside from child porn, which is to me about the worst thing you can think of. Well, actually, we're gonna mention red rooms and things later, so I guess there are other things that are on par with it, with the terrible nastiness of it all. But there are actually sex sites and illegal porn sites that go far beyond even the gross stuff you think you've seen on the surface web. That actually, some of these actually ban pedophilia, but still just have some really insane chat groups and talk about some really crazy fetishes and really insane fantasies that people have that I don't know, are just very strange, very nasty stuff. There's one for sure that was verified of, there's this guy who for a long time was the guy was videotaping his sister without her knowing, and I guess she had quite a sex life, and he was secretly videotaping his own sister and putting them on the dark web. There are many, many, many strange fetishes. There's crush porn. Is familiar with that one at all?
Isn't that where females will take, or anybody taking a high heel and start crushing like animals?
Yeah, it's usually like a cute animal or something, and it's a
kitten or something like
woman
that.
Dressed in like something in whatever is being requested. They requested a woman wears things, and she wears long high heels and will then look all sexy and then crush an animal to death. Crush the head of a cute bunny or a kitten or something along these lines. There's a big time Russian site that has been chased over and over again, that was dedicated to the shipping of sex slaves. They would ship your sex slaves for you worldwide. So this is people that already had sex slaves or already were human trafficking, but this was just a little good go-between for the shipping of these people for you for a price, basically. Very strange stuff. This is some of the, how much was it used? How much did it cost? It varies. I don't know, but these ones are legit. These are sites that have been caught or moved or have been found out. Nasty stuff, guys. Nasty stuff. I'd like to kind of segue into some of the government secrets that have been revealed and talked about on the dark web. But one thing, are you guys familiar at all with Operation Playpen?
I don't even know if I want to know what it is.
Well, this isn't all bad.
Okay.
This isn't all bad, actually. In fact, there are some good things, although it is nefarious by nature. But Operation Playpen was a state-run pedophile ring by the United States. It's a pedophile ring run by them. It was run to catch them. The FBI ran this site, and they did. They caught a lot of pedophiles. This was fairly successful. But in essence, the United States ran a pedophile website that had thousands and thousands of followers and hits. And many people went there and got child porn and uploaded and downloaded a whole bunch of stuff from there. But they did work. They did catch a lot of them. The FBI did catch a lot of pedophiles and capture, and prosecute a lot of them. But in essence, I mean, do the ends justify the means? Perhaps. This stuff's all out there. It's not like the government did this. It's not like they said, "Hey, let's go." Let's go capture some kids. No, they took other things from other sites, brought in a bunch of people, got their information, and then went and arrested some people. It's basically a giant sting operation.
It's entrapment, but it's done to crappy people. So
yeah. I mean, but just kind of strange stuff. The idea that it's hard to. I don't know. I mean, it's good. I'm glad they caught people.
I always kind of felt like when they do things like that, like what's that one to catch a predator?
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. So you catch these crappy people and you throw them in jail. But how about the people who are pretending to be like that child? Like, I feel like those people are a little messed up themselves too. Like, when the operation's done, can we take that person and lock them away also?
Right. Hey, I know what you mean. It's kind of it just leaves this, I guess the ends justify the means. I guess. But, it's kind of a nasty idea to think that, our government was running I don't want to say pedophile ring. They were not running a pedophile ring, but they were running a pedophile website in essence. Jeez. I mean, I don't know. But a lot of government secrets out there. Whistleblowers, conspiracy theorists, many of them claiming to have some hardcore video evidence is very prevalent on the dark web. There are supposedly recruiting areas for government testing on the dark web.
So if you wanna be in government testing, you can go ahead and apply in some of these certain.
Yes, there was several of them that they were later erased. That basically they were paying good money, like $250,000 for 1 year.
And we're already being tested on though, right?
Yeah.
So I was gonna say. So in Ed's case, he's like, probably sign up. I mean, aren't we all signed up?
Get paid for it.
Might as well get paid, right? But basically, they'd give you $250,000 for a year's worth of work, but you would have to disappear onto some sort of ship, and you'd have to go on a ship for a year, and it's undisclosed what exactly they were going to test you for.
Answer me this, Josh. If they said there's a good possibility you may gain some type of mutant power, would you do it?
Probably. Probably. That's like I've always kind of wanted to, like, I kind of like to take my garbage out during lightning storms. I'm just like, what am I gonna, like, not try to get superpowers?
Like, wait, what's the metal that bonded to Wolverine's bones?
Adamantium?
Yeah, like if you said, we can give this to you, you'll survive the process. Would you do it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Well, maybe. I don't know. It's a tough call. I mean, that is really tough, but yeah.
But
I don't know.
he also, very hard to kill, too.
Right. No. I mean, he's pretty tough, too.
Extreme healing powers, so...
Yeah, now I get to see myself in there, though. It never works out for the government agency. It's like, should we call you Josh? No. Wolverine. What about you, Weapon X? No, you know, what's going on with these? Who knows? Maybe it's just, maybe it's not as nefarious as it sounds. Or maybe it is. maybe you don't survive the year, so the 250 grand never gets spent. I don't know. But on the other side of that, the dark web is just brimming with manuals on terrorism. You know, how to be a better terrorist, how to accomplish goals, and manuals on government overthrow. Basically, it's all over the place. But again, this is not new. I mean, what was the book that used to be out?
Anarchist Cookbook.
Yeah, the Anarchist Cookbook years ago. I mean, that was a print book, and that that kind of stuff was huge on the. It's on the surface web too, but much more intense, I guess, from what they say on the dark web. We mentioned drugs. Right? We mentioned drugs a lot, and kind of like what I said with pedophilia, the thing that just I think doing research on this stuff and just crunching the numbers, just the basic numbers that they tell you about some of these things when it comes to drugs. I think a lot more people do hard drugs than we realize. You know, I don't know. I don't do this stuff.
I think you're right.
You know, I really do think that there's a lot more people. I think there's like this myth that every heroin addict or every crack addict, or every person snorting coke or doing meth, that they're all just big time losers on the brink of death.
I think there's a lot of people who have just done them very occasionally socially, but they'll still do them from time to time. Or they're functional. With
cocaine is for sure that type of drug.
I know multiple people who have used that
as do I.
A handful of times.
I was gonna say, look,
it's a party drug.
Look what came out the other day. That Miami Dolphins offensive line coach was basically busted for that video coming out of him snorting cocaine.
Highest paid assistant coach in the NFL, and
I think the biggest surprise.
I don't know if he's the highest paid.
I thought he was.
No,
I thought I heard that.
He was an offensive line coach. There's no way an offensive line coach.
Am I right? Was he perhaps highest paid in that position?
He may have.
Okay.
He may have.
$3 to $4 million a year. He was making.
I think the biggest surprise is you don't see more videos like that.
Yeah, that may be Ed. I mean, but you would think though, a guy coaching an NFL team, maybe that's not something you equate all the time as a guy.
Well, he's got the money for it.
I know he's got the money for it, but I mean,
and the means.
Again, though, I get it though. I mean, I don't know. Seems like there's more to live for than doing drugs like that. So
I went to the emergency room once. I had really bad tachycardia, and so they hooked me up to a machine and did all sorts of tests on me. And while I was there, I got asked many, many times, "Are you on drugs? Did you do drugs?" And my response to them every time was, "No, I can't afford it."
Yeah, so be careful on the tests you're running, because I probably can't afford those either.
Yeah.
No, it is true. No, I mean, it most certainly is true. My sister is a nurse, and she's actually a labor and delivery nurse, and she is shocked by the people that, and she's told me stories of a lot of people are on drugs,
Yeah.
And have babies. But and I know a lot of other nurses as well, and no, it's definitely true. I do feel though that there's this idea that there aren't people going to work every day or living semi-normal lives that aren't doing heroin or meth or crack, or it's out there. It is out there. People do this stuff, and the street dealers have moved off the street. They're on the dark web now.
People are only generally open about the ones that are legal. I mean, like how many people who regularly consume caffeine or drink alcohol, and there's a bit of openness even about smoking weed now that it's semi-legal-ish.
Right. No, you're right, Ed. I don't think a ton more people smoke weed now than they used to, but people are certainly more open about it than they used to be
because of the legality.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people used to. this used to be a hidden thing that you at home.
Yep.
In your basement, behind the garage. Now it's not really even hidden anymore.
Nope.
People smoke pot all the time. Whatever. It's like alcohol. Whatever. You know, it's just something I do.
Yep.
And I wake up and go to work. Put the kids to bed and burn one and wake them. You know, rinse, repeat. No, it's out there, and I'm not even criticizing it necessarily. I don't care. I do think drugs are legal. I don't know. I've always said I don't know what possesses someone to do hard drugs. You know, I've never quite understood it. Never been brave enough. I'd like to say I've never been dumb enough, but maybe I've just never been brave enough to try anything like that in my life, and never will. But you know, it's out there. It's obvious. A lot of people are doing drugs, judging by how many drugs have to come in and how many drugs are sold on the black market. Now, I was going to say on the street, but it's technically not on the street anymore. It's on the black market. It comes from the dark web.
It still happens on the street.
It does. It does. I mean, the thing is, the little dealers are still on the street. But where do they get the big shipments from?
The government.
Yeah. But from the dark web, though. You know, and that's where the big time dealers who are big enough and smart enough to have learned to cover their ass, they're on the dark web, and then they sell it to the little guys, and then they sell it to the users, in essence, is what's going down here. Hackers. You know, I mean, there's hackers all over the place. The dark web, this is their home. You know, this is where they go, and the hackers, they are for hire. Hackers work for and against the government on a regular basis. You know, they basically, you have hackers for hire all over the dark web. I would say that's a huge part of what the dark web is about, is just simply people out there with the skill to be hidden, with the skill to be there for hire to do whatever you want them to do. You know, this is that's where you find them. You don't find them on the surface web. You don't find them at your, you know, on Craigslist. You find hackers on the dark web, basically. Thieves too. You know, we mentioned hitmen briefly, and we'll go back to hitmen, but thieves are just people who, you know, we all know what a thief is, but just somebody on the dark web who is there to steal stuff for hire. There are some that will steal stuff for you. There are also just some really strange sites. There's one guy who did eventually, I believe they caught him, but he basically would just steal stuff for fun and send you a picture of it if you paid him. And this guy would steal anything and was very successful. He stole a Krispy Kreme sign, the actual like sign on top, like huge sign on top of the Krispy Kreme, because someone said, you know, it was just a big like, we'll pay you to do it, and it's like a dare in essence, you know. And I mean, this guy, you know, stole a Krispy Kreme sign, took pictures of it, and sent it to the people, and got paid.
That almost kind of makes me want to be a thief on the dark web. It's like, you're not actually hurting anybody, and that's kind of funny in a way.
Right.
The only people who are hurting are Krispy Kreme, who have to go and pay for a new sign.
They're probably insured.
Eventually return. Yeah, they're insured. It's an insurance company getting it. Or, you know, you can throw them a few bucks to pay you enough, and you can take care of it. Or you return the sign later.
I probably bought enough hot glazed in my life to pay for that sign.
Reminds me of the Big Boy, when everybody used to steal the Big Boy statues.
Yes.
From which I don't know if they still put those up a lot. Or is Big Boy still around anymore?
Are you thinking of the Simpsons episode where Homer steals the Lard Lad donut?
I am thinking. I do remember that one.
There are definitely still Big Boys around this area. That's it. By the way, I don't know if I should. Maybe I'm dumb to say this on air, but that's crazy to steal a Big Boy sign, because Big Boy is one of those companies that has pretty much been verified. It's very much mob run. And Big Boy is? Yeah.
Really?
Had definite mob ties. I don't know if it is now. It's more corporate, but big time mob ties with Big Boy.
Well, they're franchise too, aren't they? So
yeah. Everybody talks about the hitmen on the dark web.
The Bret Hart
thing,
right?
Not Bret Hart.
Oh
no. Bret Hart is. I mean, him and Jim the Anvil Neidhart were an amazing tag team duo, no, not Brett the Hitman Hart. He is readily available all over the surface web and on VHS tapes, scattered throughout homes in America. But there are many assassins available on the dark web. Very expensive. Some of these hitmen and assassins have rules. Some don't. Some of them, are kind of traditional, do the old, no women, no kids thing. Some don't have that rule. Many of them have, they say they won't take out high-profile people or high-profile politicians, but they are for sale. They're there. It's not cheap. But then when it comes to the high-profile ones, there are some people out there that will do it for a whole bunch of money. And some of these, they have actually set up bounty sites for some of your favorite or not so favorite political figures. In essence,
Which we won't name anybody.
We won't, but you all know. I mean, who your politicians leading the nations are, and basically what they do is people who hate a politician, a specific one, will name a politician. They will go to a hitman, find out how much they want, how much they need to take this person out, and then they will start bounties, basically. So
Basically, crowdfunding.
Yeah. This is basically a GoFundMe account, a GoFundMe style funded thing where you will say, we would need $7 million to execute this particular political figure. Donate here with Bitcoin. And if it gets to that level, then they can hire the assassin to do the job. Whether that be a president or a senator or a prime minister or a member of parliament or wherever you live, it is there. It is there. How often has this been done?
Who
knows? I
knows?
can't think of one, but we have had untimely deaths of political figures. We have had people assassinated. Whether it was a byproduct of this, we don't know. We do not know that. I'm just rattling through a bunch of them here, guys. If at any point,
I was going to say, wasn't it? President Bush, the second, W. I can remember an instance. I believe he was traveling overseas, and I want to say it was somewhere in Eastern Europe, where they ended up finding like a live grenade not far from the stage he was speaking on. So again, I'm assuming that was, a maybe a half-assed assassination attempt on President Bush. Perhaps that went through the deep web, or
many people have mentioned the way Antonin Scalia died. As
that was the heart attack gun, though, wasn't it?
It could have been. Could have been. People have access to a lot of things, who knows? But no, the heart attack gun is. We've mentioned that on previous Deep Issues shows. That's things like that do exist. They absolutely positively do exist. Another really kind of nasty one here is human experimentation. There is some things on there, some videos, I don't know if people watch this as pornography or how exactly they get off on this stuff, but extremely grotesque things. Many of it is, they believe, is captured homeless people who they torture or mutilate. This gets into the red rooms that I had mentioned earlier. A red room, in essence, is a room with a person, usually an adult, sometimes a child or an infant. And in essence, what people do is people pay to have things done to this person. They pay money, and again, these could be fake. God, I hope they're fake. I pray that they're fake.
That's what Hostel's based off of.
Yeah, that basically it's a red room, usually in they usually seem to be in like a South American or a Middle Eastern country, but who knows where it could be? That's just a guess at this point. And what's really kind of terrible is that when they kind of crunch the numbers afterwards, it seems like the person doing this probably got paid not much more than a couple $100 to torture, beat, kill, rape people live on a live stream, and people pay for it. Again, very grotesque. This is they theorize that it's kind of like captured homeless people or something, and that people that just won't be traced. There are places on there where you can buy homemade vasectomy kits. Seems like a good thing. You don't feel like paying that extra money. There are sites where people pay to supposedly have seen people cooked alive, or women being barbecued. Live streams of Russian roulette, people passing the gun back and forth, or a group of 6 people playing Russian roulette. This one, I almost didn't want to read this one, because really just gotta hope that this one is fake. But there is a thing out there, and this one was, the site was certainly verified and supposedly worked on, or found or shut down, but there's a person selling human sex dolls. Literally people who they have taken them and amputated their legs or arms so they cannot escape, and then they sell that person as a human sex doll.
Yeah.
To the highest bidder. Like I said, I pray that is not real, and that these are just pictures of people who have been who have lost limbs and other things. But many pictures of this out there, many instances of this out there. To me I can't even stomach that, honestly. I don't really want to get too much into it. I truly hope that is fake. And why someone would even want to fake that is grotesque to me, but the idea that could actually be happening to even one person on planet Earth is so terrible. Try to bring it back a little bit to something that we can perhaps stomach, but tons of stolen property for sale, computer equipment. Apple products are huge on the black market. iPhones, iPads, all this stuff is just absolutely huge. I assume it's stolen, but in that people are just selling it all over. That's it. A lot of Satan worshiping on the dark web as well. A lot of sites devoted to this. Again, maybe they're fake, maybe they're just people trying to be super, super edgy. But how-to guides, tutorials, videos, ritual murders, all in the name of Satan, all over the dark web, We can come back to stuff if you guys want for some reason, but 2 more big things that I definitely want to cover. You guys familiar with this isn't really totally a dark web thing, but it is partially for some reason, or to some degree, and we won't touch on it because this could be something covered on a later date. But are you guys familiar with the Cicada 3301 thing?
I saw it on a list. I didn't get too into it. So what is it?
Cicada 3301 is basically a ridiculous. It is a extremely difficult puzzle that has been found on the internet. 4chan was related in this, and then it brings you to the dark web. But it's basically a thing no one knew what it was, and then if you cracked this initial code, you found I actually could send you this later, Adam, if you wanted to put it on the site. But basically, within the picture, you found a message that said, "Hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. There's a message hidden in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on the road to finding us. We will look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck, 3301." In essence, this is just when you broke it all down, you finally, if you coded it just right, worked out the code, someone finally realized that if you put it into Notepad, that at the bottom, it was mostly garbled, but it said something that says, "Claudius Caesar says," and it revealed another code. So then they went from there, and it's just this huge puzzle leading to another puzzle that led to subreddits, and then led to a public key, private key kind of notion. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the public key, private key idea that existed before the internet, that this is like the only way to like hide certain things. But I mean, to do all this, you just have to have an intense knowledge of math, especially calculus, history, literature, science, computers, and so much more.
You could have math, Ed. Maybe you could.
Just hey, Ed's a smart guy. Ed could. This is like.
I'm guessing this probably leads you to a local Little Caesars, and there's probably somebody there that buys you a $5 hot and ready.
You know, but that then after that, it did lead you to certain places outside. You know, you had to then go on the dark web to find certain things. There was different meeting places around the world: Seattle, Arkansas, South Korea, France. All these different meeting places, and they theorized, they don't know if this is a secret government agency trying to get to this or what it was, but we are running out of time, so I'm not going to do a ton on Cicada 3301. We could do a whole show on Cicada.
How pissed would you be, though? You do all this stuff, and you're like, hey, $5 hot and ready. Like, all right, well.
F you. Can I at least get the pepperoni cheese bread?
No, just the $5 hot and ready.
Damn you. Cheesiest, most bestest, or whatever it's called.
No, you gotta pay an extra $1 for that.
Yeah. Damn it. So you have to, the buck has to come out of pocket.
Yeah.
It only goes in Bitcoin. You can only pay in Bitcoin.
1.03 of a Bitcoin. Okay, one thing that we do have to talk about, and we'll kind of maybe close it up with this. If you guys want to jump back into something, we can. But Mariana's Web. Are you guys familiar with this term at all? Mariana's Web.
What is it?
Mariana's Web is the potentially mythical, no one knows, idea this is supposed to be the deepest, darkest point of the internet that most people have never reached or can never reach and may or may not actually exist. It's of course named after Mariana's Trench, which is the deepest part of planet Earth. The deepest part of the ocean is Mariana's Trench. Mariana's Web is a part of the web that they say requires a quantum computer to reach. Now, most people say, well, quantum computers don't exist yet. So
We'll be able to find out soon.
So maybe Mariana's Web must not exist. You need to, I have no idea what this means, but to enable to reach it, you would have to have polymeric Felsegall derivation. Don't ask me what that means. I have no idea. But that is part of quantum computing, in essence. But some people theorize that it does exist already. And that if quantum computers are there in some way, shape, or form, that it may exist.
So what's supposed to be on it, then?
A secret database. There are several theories. A secret database for government agencies. CIA, MI6. That you can't reach unless you have one of these insanely powerful computers. Some people theorize that this is what Anonymous or WikiLeaks have been able to hack, and that there is, ties to alien technology or the location of Atlantis or Bin Laden's autopsy. I don't know if I buy any of that, but this is in essence an even darker deep web.
I always like to do the
even seedier than the dark web.
I always like to do the Ed measuring stick. Ed, do you believe this?
This is the first I've ever heard of it.
Okay.
So I
don't know yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm kind of going off some of the goofy stuff here at first, but I'm going to get into the part that I do kind of buy into.
Is your reaction you take whatever I have and you have the opposite?
Yeah.
Many of
Wait a minute. Do you think the Las Vegas shooting was a government conspiracy?
I do not think the official story is true.
Okay, then I think the official story is true.
Of course you do. Of course you do. CNN reported it. Some people theorize that the Vatican's secret archives have been put into some sort of super deep web that is unaccessible.
You're gonna find out who the Gilgamechs are then.
The Vatican's involvement in world governments, they would feel that the Vatican needed to do something, make some sort of digital copies of these aging documents that are withering with time. The Illuminati Information
Sorry,
Network.
I just picture some like 70-year-old bishop in the basement of the Vatican and some rinky-dink copy machine just making copies of. And that's what this is.
Perhaps. There's theories of something basically called the Illuminati Information Network. Because, I mean, if you believe in the Illuminati, if you believe that this exists, it would need some sort of worldwide communication that is totally secure. Could the Illuminati have the only quantum computers? Could they exist already?
The NSA probably has some already.
Could be. Are they linked to the Illuminati?
Probably.
Here's where it gets...
Probably not.
Here's where it gets... and here's where it gets really insane. And this is the most insane part of it all. But this is kind of the part that I kind of buy into to some degree, I'll be honest. The other stuff, I don't really buy. The Vatican's got the only quantum computers. Not really. Maybe, I don't know. They might. But sentient artificial intelligence. In essence, we're talking ghosts in the machine here. We're talking Mariana herself, I guess. She is overseeing the entire digital universe. This idea that if computers were to become sentient, if we are living in a universe that is simulated, if there is something more that is going to be created, in essence, you could claim that if this is possible, if these quantum ideas are there, that if they could potentially exist, then they technically could already exist. Or they technically do already exist. And that there is a literal sentient part of the internet that is controlling Mariana's web. That is out there. Some part of it that is so deep that just because we can't necessarily access it yet doesn't mean it isn't there.
There's some pretty advanced AI that is publicly known.
Right.
You know that there are things behind closed doors far more advanced.
And we also do know that Edward Snowden mentioned projects similar to this in his WikiLeaks. That he mentioned government projects creating or potentially working with quantum computers already. So, this is more of a philosophical question here, in essence. You're making the claim that there is something out there that is deeper than we can yet quantify. That there is a ghost in the machine. There's a lot of things that can't necessarily be explained on how the internet works, how computers work, how technology works, and perhaps there is something so deep in there at the quantum levels that is controlling some of this, that is overseeing everything the internet does. I mean, in essence, in some ways, Mariana's Web is the internet itself. It is what it's what's dictating the ups and downs of this system. And God, if you're somebody who believes in simulation theory, one of our first deep issues topics that I'd love to revisit at some point, if you're somebody who's into that kind of stuff, I mean, this is is time not relative? If we can, if this is possible, then it's technically already there. And there may be sentient forms of AI already operating within our internet that we can't necessarily catch up to just yet. And maybe we'd never be able to catch up to because maybe they'd always be one step ahead of us. I don't know. This is interesting to me. Some people think that part is nuts. To me, that's the part that's believable. But I don't know. I don't know. I haven't met Mariana. I don't know what she's doing with her web. But that's pretty much, I mean, we've covered a ton here. I know there's a lot of different topics that we could have done a whole show on just that topic by itself. So I hope we didn't throw out too much information tonight. I hope this was a informative thing. I do want to throw that waiver out one more time. Listen, you are a free individual. Do what you want. I would really suggest that no one try to go onto the dark web. But if you do, please do not visit these sites. Please do not go to the dark web unless you really, truly, really know what you're doing. Okay? I mean, it's really important. Don't just go on there as a fool's errand. I would stress that it's probably a bad idea to go on no matter what. But if you do your research, do your homework, do it right, okay? Don't get yourself in trouble. And I'm not worried about your home computer. If you go on the deep web and your computer gets hacked, well, I don't wish that on you, but consider yourself lucky that that's what you lost.
You could always get a new computer.
Right. And there's certainly evil at work. There are certainly nefarious forces out there. So just please be careful whatever you do, and think twice before you do this. But something that we never think twice about doing.
Speaking of evil.
Yeah, speaking of evil, we're gonna go to Pumpkin now, and this is not technically the next Deep Issues show will be recorded on Devil's Night and will air.
Is that a Deep Issues? Technically, it's not.
No, it's the 5th Tuesday.
Is it the 5th Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so technically, it's a Deep Issues that we'll be doing, but we'll be doing it on some spooky areas here in the Detroit area. Adam and I, we don't really exactly even know quite what that show is going to be. It's going to be fun, though, that's for sure. But we're going to record it on Devil's Night. We usually air totally live, but we're going to record it on Devil's Night. We're going to air it on Halloween, and we're going to go over some really spooky, fun, kind of cool stuff from here in the Detroit metro area. And should be fun. Should really be cool. I'm really looking forward to it. That is technically our next Deep Issues show, but right now we're going to delve into Pumpkin, and we're going to find out the next Deep Issue show, which will air on the second Tuesday of next month.
That would be November 14th.
November 14th. And
if it's Star Wars, I'm going to be pissed.
And Ed is reaching into Pumpkin, and Ed is handing the note from Pumpkin to our producer, Adam Hernandez, the heart and soul of the Xcast.
Are we ready?
We are ready. Read it.
All right. Then November 14th episode, Deep Issues episode, will be... Oh my god.
That's the choose again?
No. This is right up Ed's alley, though. It will be the Deep State.
The Deep State. Okay, this is hidden government, deep state kind of stuff, right?
Yep.
Very cool. All right. So that will be our next Deep Issues show. Well, technically, that will be our next total Deep Issues show. In November, we do have a special show going on at the end of this month. It will air on October 31st.
One quick thing, though, Josh,
Yes,
can we do a round table? One final
yes,
final
definitely.
thought on Deep Issues from each of us. Whether or not we believe all of it, whether or not the usual.
Yeah. Do you want to start, Adam, or?
I will just say I think that I think the majority of what we hear about the dark and the deep web is probably true. I think that the world is a big place. I think that the internet is very it's reflective of that. And unfortunately, there's some. I mean, the most unbelievable stuff is usually the worst stuff, and there are some really bad people out there, and some of those really bad people, unfortunately, have, they go and they pay for their Xfinity, so they have that access to the internet. And unfortunately, that's going to be the case in a lot of sense. So I think that a lot of the stuff that we hear about, I don't think Mariana's Web, and maybe some of that is true, maybe it's not. But as far as like the majority of what we hear about when it comes to that stuff, I think the most of it is probably true.
Mm. Ed, what do you think? How do you cover this? What we just talked about?
I think, I guess to an extent I agree. A lot of it's true. I don't think the scale of it. I think there's definitely a lot of hoaxes and misinformation and things like that on there. But I mean, it's just a reflection of reality and kind of our laws. Certain things are illegal for good reason and they shouldn't exist there, just like they shouldn't exist in real life. But certain things exist there because that is a way to get them, because they're illegal, like guns, like you've mentioned, some other things that maybe people, that's their way to get it. But the dark web isn't necessarily a bad place. They're good and bad there, just like everywhere else. It's just, I think because people haven't been there and used it, it just has this mystique and aura and kind of like this scariness to it. But my personal belief is you'll probably see, well, you won't see it, but certain parts of it will grow more as censorship continues to grow.
Mm-hmm. No, good points, guys. Listen, I think I kind of described the deep web how I just said. I think the dark web is pretty evil for the most part. I have a very pessimistic view of this. I think that pretty much every single thing I just covered, everything that we just talked about, everything I brought up, everything that we covered here on this show, I think it's true. I think that terrible, terrible things happen and nasty stuff happens. Now, is every single story of it true? No, I don't think that at all. I actually think probably about 95% of what is reported from this stuff is false. But that's nowhere near enough. I think 95% of the stories are made up. 95% of the posts are fake. They're crap. They're bullshit. But 95% is not anywhere near enough. And I think just about every single thing we covered at some point has happened, does happen, will happen again, and I'm not going to sleep for a week or so. So it's there is some really scary stuff out there. There are evil forces at work, and there are evil people perpetuating it, and some of this stuff is really nasty, really nefarious, and it scares the crap out of me. But again, is every post true? No, of course not. Of course not. No, the vast majority of them are crap. The vast majority of them are not true, but that's not enough, though.
Look how many things on the surface web aren't true.
Exactly. Good. Great point. But this was a good show. Going into moving from the deep web to the deep state next month, and but before that, hey, we have a great musical guest coming on next week. So check out the regular show too. Alicia Marie from Minnesota, jazz singer, extremely talented and gorgeous woman will be calling into the show next week. Very much looking forward to that. Got a lot of great stuff planned before our show on in October. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys got some insight on the deep web.
See ya.